Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast, the show where we complain about almost
Uh,
everything that happens in relation to our favorite teams, for the most part. Yeah, dude. I'm like sitting at work, and it's like I don't know, like 10 o'clock, like on a Wednesday. So I'm just like puttering, going through emails, whatever, and then I just see my phone just blowing up. And I see you send me a lot of tweets and you're like, can't wait to talk about the Sixers, exclamation point. And I'm like, oh no, what happened? And then I go and I'm like going down like the rabbit hole of the abortion, the back alley abortion that is the Philadelphia 76ers. I hate to sound graphic, but that's what else would you describe this as? What would you
yeah,
describe the Sixers as right now? The Hindenburg,
it's
the Hindenburg,
it's
the Titanic.
yeah, not to, I guess, avoiding the historical aspect of it, it's like a 15 car pileup on the highway. You just can't look away, and it's all a disaster. Maybe there's like a hero in there, and that's Jared McCain at the moment. But
I mean, the only
um,
positive of this is that Josh Harris is pissing away his money. You know,
yeah.
that's maybe
So to rip off the Band-Aid. So the Sixers, in the peak of their disaster of a season, uh, have a team meeting. They have a closed door team meeting after the loss to, well, it was Orlando, correct? On
yeah. I mean,
it was after Orlando's loss. They had a closed door team meeting last week. Um, the team meeting got leaked. It got leaked pretty badly because we're getting like direct quotes from the leak, like from the meeting, and that, you know, if anything shows dysfunction, it's that you can't even go a day without it from a team meeting without everything coming bursting out at the seams. So the meeting consisted of Tyrese Maxey giving a little bit of, you know, from what we've heard, only about probably less than a minute of discourse, everyone just kinda airing everything out, saying that Joel is late to everything, and that, like, kind of affects the team. Joel, like, accepted it, said that he's confused at what they're trying to do on offense, you know, regardless, biggest point being Joel being late to things and not seemingly caring in the eyes of the public, or not taking things as seriously as he needs to be, especially at this point in his career with, you know, his championship window personally as a high level player is closing, as this franchise's like era of Sixers championship window closing if it's not closed already. Um, and You know, even just directly this season being the disaster that it is, they just picked up their 3rd win of the year last night. It is November 23rd. They're 3 and 13 on the season. It's not where you wanna be, obviously. You know, it's just really, really frustrating, and everything's a bad look at this point. You know, we knew the plan going into the season that they were gonna be very hyper cautious with Joel Embiid's knee, and clearly after their losing effort against the Grizzlies, in which Embiid actually played really well, and it was, you know, it was nice to see that he's not actually washed, he whatever, but his knee definitely blew up a little bit, inflamed, swelling, so he did not play last night, and he's not going to play Sunday. The Sixers are just all bad right now. It's almost all terrible, and it's all getting kind of hyper focused on Joel, and obviously that makes sense. You think about his whole tenure here, what the story's been, can't get over the hump. the injuries, whatever. And now he's starting to bite back a little bit more, starting to be a little bit more bitter to the media, starting to be a little more rude, and it's all it's just bad stuff that's coming up to support his case for being, like, bitter. Like, he can be bitter on a personal level all he wants because the media has taken, uh, wrongful personal shots, whatever. But, when you have the whole you're late to meetings and late to practices or whatever, and you show up in Miami to play when the whole game or the whole day leading up, everyone did not think he was playing because he was pretty sick, and then he just kinda shows up about an hour before tip-off and, like, plays. I don't know. It's just it's just a mess. It's not good. Team meeting stuff leaking out is not good. It's every bad thing that you can imagine, when there seems to be, like, chemistry problems or culture problems, in fact, especially with the star player, you're pretty much getting it all, full service right now with the Sixers.
So the rumored leak is Nick Nurse. Like people like
Yeah.
Sixers sleuths, which means he should be fired, terminated immediately.
Well, it's, um Nick Nurse has rumored to leak meetings before, leak information. I think he sometimes uses it to, like, his coaching advantage or whatever to really help try to snap a player out of something that's going on. The rumor is that it's, like, Nurse, but also it's, like, through Clutch, like, Clutch Sports, agency because, their client being the 25-year-old, young star, being the true leader, the true voice of the locker room, being able to the first person to really ever, call out Embiid in his tenure here, as no one else seemingly has. That's a good look on Clutch as, like, that's their guy, that's their client. And Nick Nurse is also represented by Clutch, so it would kinda make sense, potentially. I think Nick Nurse would only leak it if he didn't feel like it got through fully to Embiid. I think he's the only one. But I don't know, Embiid lashing out saying whoever leaked it is a POS. I feel like you're asking the questions you don't want the answers to. And like it's just that if it comes out, oh yeah, it was Nick Nurse, like
Yeah, but Michael,
I
I
don't know,
don't. Michael,
Embiid's
does Eric Spoelstra do this? Does
no, no. Listen, Eric Spoelstra probably doesn't have these sort of culture issues. Like, and he's had huge
well,
personalities on his team.
ding, 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 ding. That's the issue here is that
Yeah, yeah,
the issue is that well, listen, no, Nick Nurse leaked it. If he was the leak, he leaked it so he can cover his ass so he can get another coaching job.
after
Because
this.
no one in their right mind is gonna want to hire Nick Nurse if the with what the talent the Sixers have and they finished with like 25 wins. No one's gonna want to hire him to be a head coach again.
Yeah. No, this
So
will
what do you
be
do? Oh, Embiid is a giant man child. He's always hurt. He just shows up late. What am I supposed to do?
right.
Never mind the fact that they have Tyrese Maxey and you just mentioned Jared McCain before the show is this, potential superstar. And Andre Drummond is one of the better centers, you know.
Well, you still like Yabusele, even if he's been the backup center more, has been very effective in that role. You do still have Paul George, make what you want, but you have guys like there's a team there that is very capable, and like just watching the Sixers, the shots aren't falling, but this is probably about the best spacing that they've had um, in a while. Like just strictly basketball stuff. Like you just watch them play almost at all times, all the guys on the floor can shoot, which has not been the case, a lot, and with between Yabusele, who plays hard and hustles well, and Caleb Martin, who plays hard, hustles well, seems to have pretty good, like, off-ball IQ, and then mix that in with Jared McCain, who has off-ball movement that just reminds you of Steph Curry, the way that he just is always running. It's it's gonna help things that if it ever kind of, uh, blossoms into what we hope it blossoms into, I think it would actually look pretty effective and be pretty effective just because the spacing is so good. But obviously, you gotta drag yourself out of it. A win last night was nice off the back of McCain and Maxey. Um, McCain with 30 again, but they've dug themselves a pretty deep hole, and it just makes you think back to all the other, Sixers teams of the past that have fallen. And when I start thinking about Embiid and I start thinking about how, like, everyone is treating him, how he's perceived, not only like, nationally, no one's ever liked Embiid, like, fans-wise, media-wise, he's never been a favorite. The only people that have consistently given him, like, props and respect has been, like, other players in the league, like Kevin Durant or LeBron or, like, other superstars recognize that he's really, really good. That's been the only sort of guys that do it. Jimmy Butler, being the big one. I guess we'll tie up that loose end eventually, is that at this point, no one outside of Philadelphia has, like, an ounce of respect or remorse, whatever, towards Embiid. And I think we're at a point where it's the majority of people in Philadelphia, the majority of Sixer fans at this point are out on Embiid, they're over it, and no one feels bad anymore. And, like, it just makes me think all the way back to the start, and, like, you can go through his whole life story of how brutal it was to even get to this point. But even just strictly in the basketball world with the Sixers organization, there were 2 people that Joel Embiid probably, like, trusted the most as people in the Sixers organization. First one being Sam Hinkie, obviously the one who drafted him and was telling everybody, "Do not move him, like, he's the guy." Like, he was urging Hinkie was urging that Embiid was it. He was going to be the leader of the next regime of Sixers basketball, that sort of stuff. And then the league forces him out for Colangelo before Embiid even plays a game. He can't even play a game under the GM that drafted him. And then the guy they replaced him with's got the whole burner account thing, so he can't trust the front office for a second because the president of the basketball team is bad-mouthing him on Twitter through burner accounts. Okay. Coaches, like, Brett Brown was good for him, I guess, but ultimately, the not seeing eye-to-eye level between Jimmy Butler and Brett Brown/Ben Simmons led to them not choosing to keep Jimmy Butler, which, if Joel Embiid had it his way, that was probably the only player that he ever really, truly always wanted to play with, after getting that taste with him. He was the one guy that fully, like, respected Joel, kept him in line in the ways that worked with him, really connected to him on a personal level, and you saw how much Embiid trusted him and how much he wanted him back and all that sort of stuff. And the team went and didn't keep him. So, like, it was the amount of times that we're snowballing on each other, of teammates, of coaches. With you look at Doc Rivers, notorious for never taking accountability for a loss or anything, but always put the blame on the players or something else. It just was constant rotation of teammates, coaches, and front office that not only weren't good enough to win something, but weren't even people that Joel Embiid could fully trust, that always had his back and would help kind of toe the line of holding him accountable and pushing him in the right direction while still not having to, like, badmouth him or anything like that. And you finally get to this point where it's like, okay, all these people outside the Sixers thing are throwing stones at him, and it just sucks. It really, like, the more I think about Embiid and the story of what he's been here for the last decade, I just end up getting, like, very, very sad. It's very much a shame in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like I see what you're saying, but at some point, like you need to have a thicker skin.
Yeah, no,
You
listen,
need to have
there's
thicker skin,
yeah.
and I listen. Like God, I can't believe like you look at the Celtics and you look at Tatum. Like, dude, like this is kind of not to go stray off topic a lot, but like NBA ratings are like down, right?
Mhm.
They're down. And they asked Adam Silver, who is a criminal and should be thrown in prison for
Yeah.
what he's done to the NBA since he came in, right? Um, he's like, oh, it's the presidential election, took away the attention of the league. It's the World Series. Like, Michael, the World Series, like, the thing that happens every single year,
Yeah.
you know? No, it's because it's because, like,
It's your pricing, like, we talk about the whole thing where it's like it's so hard if you don't have cable to watch games, like, consistently, especially if you're, you know, in market without cable, like, you're trying to get, like, League Pass or whatever, and everyone that says they have League Pass says it blows, like, it's glitchy, whatever. So you make something expensive, overpriced, that isn't that good to begin with, and it's still, like, a headache to even get to your favorite team's games on.
well,
Combo that with the
I mean,
product that you're getting
I
to.
would say like I think oh my god, I'm
There's a
trying to jump
product
around
problem
everywhere,
with
but
the NBA.
like basically like every single star player like gets significant hate online. Like Tatum is a good example. Kevin
Mhm,
Durant,
mhm.
um, even Anthony Edwards. Like as soon as someone made the Jordan comparison and he had like a down game, everyone's just like
Jumping at him, yeah.
viscerally just crapping all over him, right?
Mhm.
when you basically allow people to call your like every good player in your sport like garbage basically, why would you tune in and watch it? Like
Mhm.
let's look at baseball for a moment, right? Like, oh my god, Otani's so good. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto.
Yeah, the worst part about baseball broadcasts is when you have it's like older broadcasters just complaining about how today's game is not as good as it used to be, and, like, complaining about all the new things about like, that's when baseball is not good, but when it's like and a love fest for all these star players, Judge and all these guys, like, yeah, it's you're talking about the sport in a positive light.
So then with Embiid, it's like Embiid scores 50 points, and then it's like, M bitch.
Yeah,
It's
or
like
free
it,
throw merchant. How many free throws? Like, that's the whole
like at some point, like
nothing gets celebrated.
yeah, it's like, yeah, dude. Imagine like, imagine when Jamar Chase had like that monster game against the Ravens. People are like, oh well, Jerry Rice had to deal with so much more difficulty or
Yeah,
something
no,
like.
it's the closest you get it every now and again with football when, like, you got, like, Slant Boy with Michael Thomas, where, like, "Oh, all he ran was slants." It's like he only ran slants to, like, break a record. I don't know. It's pretty impressive, like, if that's all he did. But you get it every now and again, but you don't get it to the same length of as the NBA. Like, the NBA, it's constant. Like, you can't go through any Embiid post without reading something about flopping, free throws, or injuries. Like, it's constant. It would be impossible to go through that on, like, a national Embiid post, and even the local ones too. But, yeah, like, there's a product issue with the NBA.
Wouldn't like normally, like wouldn't the discourse be like, man, it's a real shame Embiid had to have so many injuries early in his career, because what would have happened if he never had them and you got him for 70 games a year?
Yeah, if you I mean, you got Embiid at the peak of his powers for a full season, I mean,
Like,
it
you know
would
what I
be
mean? It's sort
remarkable.
of like we talk about like in like sports where there's like Hall of Fame athletes who had very short careers. People are like, "Oh my god, what if Sandy Koufax pitched for like 15 seasons?"
Dude, people are still hung up on Derrick Rose, who, like, even at the peak of his powers wasn't like, he was good, but, like, the peak of his powers was kinda like a poor man's prime Russell Westbrook. And, like, prime Russell Westbrook was incredible, so, like, obviously Derrick Rose was still very good, but, like, Westbrook was doing the same sort of thing, scoring the ball as Rose, while also averaging a triple-double. Like, I don't know. Like, it just was a totally there was levels to it, and people talk about prime Derrick Rose, if he never got hurt, oh my god. We're watching Embiid through injuries and stuff still put up 70 last year. His averages last season were ridiculous. He just got hurt. Him playing in that Warriors game, had no business playing. Whoever's decision that was a moron. Basically making him play that Warriors game with a torn knee. It looked like a 70-year-old out there, and then it explodes, you know? So, it's just it's really the Sixers story is that of a it's like a tragedy, you know, like, Shakespeare's plays being a tragedy. That's what this feels like. It's like a long, drawn out, multi-act play that you can try to spin it so many ways, but ultimately the way it's going to end is just not positive. And you gotta like sort of maybe move
Just
on.
bond
Like,
the season and let's hope we get Cooper Flag, and
yeah,
then
like the only reason I think my like delusions are not allowing me to just throw out this season, I think is just because of how good McCain has been. And it's like, if he's just that good, just piecemeal and right the ship to get everything on track for a little bit, and the East is still weak, that like you can kind of snake your way in at least and then give yourself a chance. And you know, you might be at a point where if Embiid isn't 100%, which like obviously he's probably never going to be ever again, but if you're in a playoff game and it's like it's not him today for whatever reason, you have like a backcourt of Maxey and McCain that might legitimately be good enough to carry you a little bit to win some games when you need to, instead of last year where it was just Maxey. Um, and if Paul George can settle into a role of kind of being that at this point almost fourth option, not really isoing a ton with himself, like being a catch and shoot guy and scoring in like bench shifts or whatever, but being able to defer to the other three guys. You can maybe get something to go there, but just ultimately just very, very pleased with Jared McCain and very excited for what his future could be. He's shooting at such an insane clip. He's the youngest player in NBA history to average 25 points and 5 assists on 50, 45, 90 shooting, which is 50 from the field, 45 from 3, 90 from the line over a 5-game span, being younger than Trae Young, Kyrie Irving, and Steph Curry as the next 3 oldest players. So, I think I think to wrap up the Sixers talk and just getting away from Embiid and just finishing it with McCain is that it's really unprecedented to have guards come in the league and be so good so quickly. You always like even if you look at Scoot Henderson would have been a number one overall pick in every other draft except for Wemby's or whatever, and it's like you see how much he's struggling and how hard it is. It's usually very hard for guards to transition into the NBA. Usually they got to really learn and pick up some more skills to be able to be a viable option, especially smaller guards, let alone when you're a big or when you're a wing, you can kind of drag and drop your game a little bit easier. But when you're a guard, you usually have to pick up some things. And the fact that Jared McCain's transition from high school to a one and done at Duke into the NBA has seemingly been seamless. I think that's really, really encouraging for the outlook of his career. So very excited for Jared McCain and what his future holds.
yeah. Well, you know, I thought I was gonna rant more on that, but I feel like it's.
I thought we were too. And then I think we just kind of like as the week
I think it's
progressed,
apathy. I think apathy is setting
I
in.
think it's apathy, and I think it was also just Twitter has been really draining about it. Like, you scroll on Sixers Twitter for, like, I don't know, 3 minutes, and I think you just kinda wanna scoop your eyes out, and the only thing that makes it last 3 minutes is, like, every 5th Embiid, like, awfulness tweet is, like, a Jared McCain tweet, and you're like, "Okay, that's pretty cool." But, like, it was such high volume, the amount of Embiid stuff that I had to read this week that it was just terrible. It was so unenjoyable.
Yeah, so Embiid, I think, is rightly getting criticized for I think his immaturity and the fact he's been a God was it like he's an 11-year vet,
This'll be um, I think this is year 10 or 11.
right? And we're gonna talk about a guy that's was only this is his
5th year?
fifth year in the league, and that is the
4th year as a starter.
Eagles starting quarterback Jalen Hurts, who I think, not to get back to Embiid, I think Eagles fans love Jalen's maturity, and I think it makes, in a sense, makes Joel kind of look bad because you think of all the insane criticism that he gets and how he's like ultra scrutinized when he makes a mistake or does something dumb. So let's just,
Yeah, it's really true because obviously we see every quarterback, I guess, get some criticism, but I definitely don't think it's a fair share. And it feels like Jalen is the only guy that gets, like you said, criticized, scrutinized for, like, 1 play. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you could Josh Allen made, like, an egregious interception or in whatever game, and I know it's Josh and we know he's bad, but it's like that doesn't get, like, 15 all 22 angle tweets from 9 different analysts and former players and whatever. But, like, Jalen Hurts misses a drag route and takes a sack, and you're seeing a range of, like, Dan Orlovsky to ESP to Kurt Benkert to all these guys, like, Kurt Warner, all these players and former and analysts,
I
whatever,
feel like
that
ESP though, oddly
he
enough, is like one of the Jalen's like biggest defenders.
he defends he's just a
He's a
funny
troll,
Twitter
but like
interaction. Yeah,
he's
he's
a
a
troll.
troll.
Like
So
Jalen will have like a 3 pick game, and he's
and he's
like,
like, "He actually played pretty well."
yeah, exactly.
But so it's ridiculous that one mistake in a Jalen Hurts game gets so much attention, and it's like it's it's all of a sudden like national Twitter becomes like Shane Haff, for example. You know, Shane Haff's the Eagle guy that does all the film breakdowns after every game, has all 22s, and it's very, informational, very intriguing, interesting, good content that he makes. But it's like all of a sudden, all these people nationally become that when Jalen Hurts makes a mistake. It's like, oh, let's look at this throw from the all 22, or let's see what Jalen Hurts missed here. Let's see and it's like you never ever see like huge discourse about one missed play. It'll be like it's exhausting, honestly, with him. And I don't know why it's always him. I don't know if it's an Eagles thing. I don't know what it is, but it's very like he can't breathe. He can't make a mistake without it being, like, national news, let alone, whatever. But if a good quarterback makes some sort of mistake, another one that is, um, it'll just get brushed by. It's like, "Ah, like, tough one there for Mahomes, tough one there for Allen, or tough misread by Stroud." And it's like, "Dude, what are we talking about?" When it's Jalen Hurts, it's like, "Are we sure this guy can lead them to a Super Bowl? Like, I think he might be the reason they don't go." And it's like, "What are we talking about?" Like, it's really, really tiring. You'd
Oh
think
yeah,
it gets reserved for, like, the top 2 guys, like, that sort of attention, but we're talking about the attention with Jalen Hurts, who's like a top 10 quarterback that a lot of people would say he's not. the way people talk about him, it's like we're giving this much attention to like their in their eyes, like the 13th best quarterback in the NFL, or even in the most like pro Jalen eyes, the fifth or sixth best quarterback in the NFL. Like, what are we doing here? It's very, very weird behavior.
Yeah, it's really yeah. I just find it interesting that like first off, like Kurt Benkert has about as much credibility as the dump that I took this morning
Mm,
about when it comes to talking about the NFL.
mhm.
We have a massive issue, I think, in broadcasting where a guy used to play in the NFL and everyone just assumes that he's this hyper intelligent, like understands what everyone does and how everything works, and they're right and they know how to critique a player, right?
Yes.
Right. Kurt Benkert, I mean, does he know more about football than you or I? Of course he does, right?
He was on an NFL team,
He's
yes.
on an NFL team. He should. If he doesn't, then that's alarming. Then
Mhm,
but they like basically like it's not about giving honest analysis. It's about what outlandish claim can I make that I'm gonna gamble and hope it's true, so then people think I'm smart.
mhm.
And I think a perfect example is what transpired yesterday. I was going to save it for the picks, but we got, this kind of lends into the conversation is the Giants releasing scout team safety Daniel Jones.
Wow. Yeah.
Jake, yeah, he's the former, I'm joking, of course. He was their longtime quarterback that they gave an extension to. How many of those dimwit clipboard jockeys, that's what they're, clipboard jockeys,
Mhm,
were like, oh my God, Michael, the Daniel Jones contract is so much a better deal for the Giants than it is for the Eagles. Because Daniel Jones, if he had, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then he'd be better than Jalen Hurts.
I mean, you have Tiki Barber saying that he would have taken Daniel Jones over Lamar Jackson entering like the 2022 season or 2023 season, whatever it was. Like the year coming off the Giants making the playoffs, it was like, I'd take Daniel Jones that next year instead of like it just it's lunacy, it's ludicrous. Um, a lot of the guys really defended Daniel Jones, saying if only, if only, if only. And then it eventually got to a point where everyone, I think, was done with it,
Do you know
but
why I think people say these like all these let's rattle them all off, Michael? David
Mhm.
Carr,
Yeah,
massive bust.
yeah.
Massive bust. Brother, his younger brother, one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Stealing money. Stealing money in the
Mhm,
NFL. Chase Daniel got paid $45 million to hold a clipboard. Good for him. Good for him, dude. Good for you.
mhm.
Now shut the F up and get off my television.
Right. Yeah,
Dan Orlovsky. Yeah, dipshit Dan Orlovsky ran out of the back of his own end zone on the 0-16 Lions.
yeah. No, listen, it's a lot of guys it's listen, you don't need to be Tom Brady to qualify yourself to talk football, but when you have backup quarterbacks, career backups, whatever, that, like it's not like they're not right to criticize or it's like, "Oh, they don't know what they're talking about," but when they say things like, "Oh, these are the easy stuff that you gotta hit," and it's like, I know for a fact that you didn't do that in your career, so I know it's not easy because you
Like what
played
I find interesting,
good
Michael.
amount of years and you
I
know
use
it's
my one
hard.
curse word, by the way.
Yeah.
That was my one curse word I'm allowed to use. What I find interesting is that like guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning talk about Jalen Hurts in a higher regard, and like Lamar and Josh Allen in high regard. Where like Kirk Benkert, who you know looks like a farmer bro, is
Mhm.
like hyper analytical, like taking these digs. I think they look at Jalen Hurts and think like, you know, I have the same arm talent he does, and he gets all these, all
We
these
got yeah,
opportunities.
yeah.
When in reality, like, I don't know. It's like I
It's
also like part of me also wonders with like Chase Daniel and Dan Orlovsky if they like I don't know hype up certain quarterbacks or certain players that the teams that they play for might hire them as like the assistant GM.
yeah, they're trying to parlay it into something more than just being,
Because look at John
talking
Lynch; he
head in
was a
media.
TV analyst, and he got hired to be the GM
Mhm,
of the Niners,
mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, dude. But like I also think as well, like it was so funny when the Eagles beat. I forget, was it the Cowboys? I forget like which team they beat, and McAfee. So like McAfee is a good example of someone who like is positive with everyone
Mhm.
for the most part.
I'm talking about the league, yeah, he's
The
not really
league,
slamming on players and teams and stuff.
right? And he's a punter. But like
Right.
when the Eagles won their fifth straight game, he said he's like, man, he's like, man, those Philadelphia Eagles are playing really well. Everyone just says they're the most garbage team in the league, and they have that you know dip dip bleep head coach Nick Sirianni.
Mhm.
I can't believe they're winning in spite of him. And he's like, oh, Jalen Hurts is like he's obviously being like
Sarcastic,
sarcastic.
yeah, that he's like a
And then
bottom
and then he
15
brings on
quarterback,
Dan
yeah.
Orlovsky, and he's like, Jalen played really well in this like game, huh? And then Dan Orlovsky's like, I think he like leaves the show because he refuses to give credit to Jalen Hurts. Like he like
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I don't know what people have against Jalen, but I don't know. You just kinda gotta keep trudging, keep
it's just
winning,
funny when
and
It's funny Dan Orlovsky blocks people when he comments negatively on like Jalen Hurts, and people retweet him running out of the back of the end zone like this you question mark.
Mhm,
He
mhm,
blocks them.
yeah.
Like, dude, yeah, he's just like, I don't know. It's really pathetic how thin skinned some of these, like, clipboard holding.
Well, it's the media people too, where it's like they have free reign to, like, take shots at, all these, like all the players kinda constantly on TV. They're able to do whatever they want, and then when people come at them on Twitter, they get all coy and defensive.
Could you imagine if, like, I don't know, uh, like Casper Wells, remember Casper Wells?
Well,
Like,
it's before my
goes on
time,
like
but
MLB Tonight, and he's like, Bryce Harper is one of the most overrated baseball players. I've deeply analyzed his swing. Like,
yeah,
how does like
you don't see that in baseball. You definitely
or
do not see that
basketball
in
or
baseball.
hockey?
You'll see it in basketball. Like, Shaq thinks every big man that
Yeah, but
plays
he's
after him
Shaq.
s
It's
yeah,
not
because
like
Shaq's emotional and
bro.
sensitive for sure. Anytime
Yeah, but
Charles
it's not.
Barkley
But
makes
like my
one joke
point is
about
like,
him, he
it's like
starts
I don't
whining.
know. If you're gonna act like that, at least be friggin' good at what you did.
Yeah, I guess. He's still sensitive, though. He's really sensitive, Shaq. Takes every like, he
He's also a
can't
creep,
no one
and
can
he's
say a joke
DMing
without saying the
Angel Reese, who's old enough
yeah,
to be his
that's yeah.
granddaughter.
Yeah, Shaq's Shaq's a little sleazy.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyways, I wanna talk about the Thursday night game because that was a classic. That was great. The Snow Globe is what they're calling it or whatever. Um, really just entertaining, classic AFC North battle, the snow, the you know, the Steelers win the turnover battle, but they still lose because the Browns had great success on 4th down constantly. Um, you watch highlights from the first half, and it looks like a completely different, let alone game, it looks like a different month or a different week. And then the second half, you see the flurries start to get a little bit bigger, and then it starts sticking, and all of a sudden you're in a snow game, full blown snow game. And it was great. It was really entertaining. I honestly, like, it wasn't I didn't feel like it was that sloppy either for it being such a snow game, like, it was pretty clean football. Both teams were taking shots back and forth, big plays, deep plays from Pittsburgh, and big 4th down conversions from Cleveland. I thought I just it was great. You know, very quality over quantity wins for the Browns this season. 2 of their 3 wins coming against, the top teams in the division, and honestly, I think the biggest takeaway from that game has because it's hard to pick anything, like, specifically about the game itself, like, "Oh, like, George Pickens only had 4 ca" it's like, it's hard to do that in a game where weather affects it that much, so you can really only talk about the end result and how that affects it, and that was a game that I think the Steelers are really, really, really gonna wish they had with their schedule coming up. You look at the Steelers' schedule the rest of the year, you tell me which of these is a guaranteed win or a win that you feel really, really good about at this point. At Bengals, home Browns, at Eagles, at Ravens, home Chiefs, home Bengals, their final 6 games of the year. Granted, they're 8 and 3, and they'll probably still make the playoffs. However, that is a game that really, really takes a punch to their division chances if the Ravens keep winning. It might be a game that really hurts their, like, seeding in the wild card
Yeah,
because
that
you look
loss
at
really hurt their advantage because the
yeah,
Ravens lost to the Browns.
yeah, so you lose that, you lose a division game, like, you look at like, the Chargers have a fairly tough schedule coming up as well, but, like, I think is it Denver that doesn't have a hard schedule? In Denver? Ugh, a lot of these AFC teams, they have some tough ones coming up, but that was a game that if the Steelers went to 9 and 2, you're all of a sudden talking about, like, listen, if they battle through their last games and get to, like, 13 wins maybe, you're looking at top 2 seeding potentially in the AFC, and you're getting one of the worst wild card team that makes it. Um, but now your division chance is probably I wonder what they have the percent calculations for that when these sort of things happen. Granted, I think it'll probably really depend on how, um, the Ravens are playing this week, yes? They're not on the bye.
Well, I know half my fantasy team is on the bye,
They
so
are the Ravens play Monday night, and that's a good one.
that is a good one.
So
That is
it'll
that's a playoff
it'll
preview
it'll
potentially.
depend on how the Ravens fare this week, but I'm sure that loss to the Browns really did hurt Pittsburgh's chances, for a better playoff seeding, and that's, definitely the biggest takeaway from it. It was really, really entertaining, but one I think the Steelers are gonna really be kicking themselves for not being able to finish off.
I agree. Honestly, though, I thought the Browns were going to win and are in that game. I know what
Mhm.
you're saying, like, oh, they have to overcome the Steelers have to overcome whatever, blah 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 blah. Like you gave all the logical talking points as well. Like the Steelers, I think, are 0-6 on
Road
road.
divisional Thursday nights, I think, or
Yes,
was it just road Thursday night?
road Thursday night games under Tomlin, and
Was
like
it divisional or just road?
I don't know, they're 0-6, and Tomlin's been there
It's
for
a it's a Tomlin thing,
forever,
yeah. Yeah.
forever. So yeah, like it was kind of that was the trend. It's and I mean, they're coming off a huge win over the Ravens. Um, where the Ravens, let's be real, they just handed them the game.
Yes.
They
Yes.
legit just handed them the game, right? And I'm not trying to say the Steelers are like bad. They're not bad.
Mhm.
But like the Steelers, they're not going to beat the Chiefs. They're not going to beat the Bills. They can beat the Ravens because they're a divisional opponent, right? They could beat them. They could beat the Chargers,
Mhm.
but they're not going to go far in the AFC playoffs,
Mhm.
barring like Lady Luck being on their side, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, they kind of like this is kind of what I expected. This is what I think like the non-elite teams, these are the games they lose, you
Mhm.
know, on the road. They tried to run, they couldn't run the ball, Like you just saw like Miles Garrett. Miles Garrett was like I saw like the meme was like Miles Garrett interception, 3 sacks. TJ Watt
Mhm.
clapped his hand 90 times,
Yeah,
ran
no, it
40.
was yeah, Miles Garrett. It's actually, like it's interesting because you look at the odds for defensive player of the year, TJ Watt's the favorite. He's like -125, and, like, 2nd place, I think it's Trey Hendrickson, but it's, like, a pretty long odds 2nd place guy. Like, it's weird because of like, TJ Watt in years past has had, like, the box score stat advantage, like, maybe more the most sacks or whatever, and, forced fumbles, things that would be, on a normal year, you wouldn't really bat an eye if he won defensive player of the year, but you looked at it from, like, double team rates and some more advanced, like, pressure rates, all and, like, Myles Garrett was wiping them with it. So they gave it to Myles Garrett last year. You look at it this year, like, TJ Watt has neither. Like, he's not like, Myles Garrett now has more sacks and more pressures than him. Trey Hendrickson, like, leads the league in sacks right now. Like, it's I don't really understand why TJ Watt's the favorite. Like, I guess he's made probably, like, 4 or 5 defensive plays through like, in 4 or 5 different games that have sealed victories for the Steelers, like, getting a big sack in the last 3 minutes of a game to wipe it out, getting strip sacks in those spots too. In the 4th quarter, with, like, 10 minutes left against the Raiders when they were up a touchdown and the Raiders were trying to get back into the game or something, he forces the fumble on the goal line and recovers it, and it's like he's he's been very opportunistic, he's been very clutch, if you will, late in the game, guts of the game, he's the one making the play, but there were opportunities on Thursday for him to, like, have one of those moments and, like, when's TJ Watt gonna break through and get the sack on 4th down to end the game? And he never got it, and he doesn't have the box score stats over Garrett either, so I'm not really sure why, you know, he's the favorite. I don't know, is it like the we just wanna give him the award and, like, he's people
Because
won't
his
really bat an
brother's
eye if they don't look
so
at it?
fun and entertaining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, if there's ever a year for TJ, like, it's, like, not this year. Like, this is not the year for TJ Watt to win the award, and, like, he's just the favorite. So, I don't know if it's like the Jalen Carter thing where he was the defensive player of the year favorite for, like, the entire season, even though it got to a point where it was like, "Okay, he's probably not anymore," but he was still the betting favorite, and then eventually just lost. Maybe that's gonna happen with TJ Watt this year, I don't know, but I don't know, it feels like especially after Thursday, there should be a bit of a shift, and I don't think there's going to be.
Well, I think the thing with Miles Garrett, Michael, I mean, is he the best defensive player in the NFL this year? I like overall. It's a little debatable. I mean, Patrick
Eh,
Surtain, I think, is right next to
I'd
him.
say Myles Garrett, like, he got,
Is
like,
right up there
doubled
next
and
to him.
tripled every play except for, like, 1 on Thursday, and he still had
I mean, is there like a
those ridiculous
linebacker
stats.
that like? I mean, I think
Like
Fred
Zach
Warner
Bond.
is overrated.
Like Zach Bond has been the best linebacker
Yeah,
in
I
the
mean, I
league,
think I
so
mean, I think that Miles Garrett is the best. He's the best defensive player,
yeah,
personally. But I try to give everybody a fair shake,
yeah,
until they cause me to lose my sanity. Sixers. Um.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think it's funny. Jameis Winston. That was the most Jameis like win ever, where it's like Jameis beats the Ravens, throws 3 picks the following week, and you're like, oh my god,
Yeah, James beats the Ravens throwing, like, 4 dropped interceptions and then throws 3 picks following week, stinks. Beats the Steelers in like, threw a really bad pick, but then orchestrated, like, such a gutsy game-winning drive eventually. Like, it was something to behold. It was very, very enjoyable.
does
I had a
Jameis
great
have as
time
many
watching the
game winning
game.
drives as Mahomes this year? or more?
I don't I have no idea. I what would that be? 1, 2?
He's got
I
two
don't know. The
game-winning
Chiefs
drives.
Chiefs are winning a bunch of one-score games, so, like, probably not. Like that the game where the blocked field goal, like, that was a game-winning drive for Mahomes. So I think Mahomes definitely has more because they just won a bunch of one-score games, so, like, I'd venture to believe he has more.
Okay. Well, I think it's time for us to jump into the picks here.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So, do you want to? Why don't you lead us off?
Okay, so to kick us off on where are we at? Week 12? Week 12, how about that? We have the Detroit Lions, who seemingly can't lose.
Well,
No, I know. Um, they have been dominant. They beat up on their bad teams. They take care of business. They kill some bad teams. We have the Detroit Lions on the road against the Indianapolis Colts, who shout out the Colts for putting together a winning performance on the road against the Jets. Anthony Richardson looked significantly better than he has all year. It's definitely the best he's looked, making great throws like that are not many quarterbacks can make. Was very effective with his legs, especially down near the goal line, giving the Jets yet another loss on their terrible season. So this line is sitting at 7.5. It's in Indy. I I'm gonna take the Colts to cover the 7.5 against the Lions. I think that the way the Lions season is going and the way they're kind of just beating up on teams, like it's hard, um, to replicate dominance 2 weeks in a row, especially when you play a better team the following week. You look at how they beat up on the Titan like they've blown out 3 teams this year. They blew out the Cowboys back in October, and the
mhm.
following week, they won on that game-winning field goal against the Vikings. Then the following week, they blew out the Titans, and they won what was a tight, gutsy win on the road against the Packers. Flash forward this week, they blow out the Jags. I think and it's another road game, like, they're blowing out teams, and they're going or staying on the road for a tougher opponent, and this, I think, is you know, no difference. I think, the Colts are a gutsy, good-ish team that is not certainly no Jags or Titans or anything like that. So I'm gonna take the Colts to cover the 7.5.
Michael, I'm in agreement with you. I'm taking the Colts as well. I
Mhm,
think this is going to be a very high scoring game. I think we both know the issue with Detroit right now is that they're arguably two best players on defense
mhm.
are out. You know, one's out for the season. The other one, God bless you. Anzalone is out. He's a very good linebacker as well. Um,
It
like
just, Brian Branch is incredible, by the
that's
way.
right. That's a good point. Brian Branch is very good. Um, Aline McNeil is really good, but Michael, like, you still need to play a little bit of, you still need to play a little defense, and I feel like
Oh,
with these benched like quarterbacks that we maybe misjudged a little too early,
yeah.
have answered their benchings very well. Almost makes you think that maybe they should have sat on the bench a little bit until they were like ready to come in, as opposed to
Mhm.
being thrown to the wolves, and then people are like jumping all over them like kind of unfairly.
Yeah.
Um, like I could see Anthony Richardson having like another good game because I think the Colts match up well on offense with Detroit's defense. Like Detroit's biggest weakness on defense, Michael, is their corners.
Mhm.
I think, right? And the Colts have a deep receiving core. I think Downs, Pittman. If
It's
he
it's a bunch of it's like a bunch of solid guys. They're kind of like the Packers, you know. None of them are great, but they're all like pretty solid.
And they're fast.
Yeah.
So I agree. I'm taking the Colts as well.
All
Oh
right.
boy. Oh
And,
boy.
like it's a game that I think the Lions can still win. It's just and probably are going to win. I
You
just
think
don't know.
like do you feel like that could be the survivor pool like buster?
I feel like team people have probably picked the Lions already. I would be surprised if they hadn't. But anyways, next game we have woof. Yeah. So the Chiefs are on the road against the Panthers. Chiefs coming off their first loss. I knew I should have taken the Bills. I drank the Kool-Aid, whatever. Regardless, Chiefs are 10.5 point favorites on the road. The Panthers are coming off a bye, coming off, the Germany victory against the Giants. Everyone was memeing that this would be the Chiefs' first loss of the season, and then obviously they go and lose to the Bills. Makes you think they're probably not losing to the Panthers, right? I don't think they're losing 2 in a row, and that
Could
second one being in
could I make
Carolina.
it may I make an intriguing argument
Sure.
just because I don't know what else to talk about this game.
Oh, man.
So, if you think the 2024 Chiefs are like the 2023 Eagles, they're going to lose this game
Interesting.
because Michael, we went into Seattle and played the Geno Smithless Seahawks and lost near the end. We played
Yeah.
like the god awful Arizona Cardinals at home and lost.
My
We went to New York and got completely obliterated by the Tyrod the apparently Woody Johnson's favorite quarterback, the Tyrod Taylor led Giants.
my argument against the Chiefs being the Eagles of last
Their
year.
coaching is way better.
Yeah, for sure, obviously. But even if you wanna say that Matt Nagy is as much of an idiot as, like, whatever the Eagles
Brian
ran out
Johnson.
last year, Brian Johnson slash Nick Sirianni combined, whatever. Because it is interesting, you look at, like, some Mahomes stats, and they certainly start to flatline once Matt Nagy gets there, and, like, Mahomes maybe isn't playing too well, but maybe the offense isn't being as prepared in the way that it should be. Regardless, the saving grace, I think, is their defense. Now, the defense of the Chiefs is not as good as it's been the last couple years. However, I do still think it is pretty good, and I do still think that Spags is, one of the better D coordinators in the league. He clearly knows how to, articulate, or not articulate, but, like, formulate a good defensive plan. Um, Josh Allen seemingly has the Chiefs' number in the regular season, like, that's not anything new. He's now what, 3-1 or 4-1 against Kansas City in the regular season in his career. Um, still 0-3 in the playoffs. I think that I don't think that Steve Spagnuolo is gonna
He's
let
pretty good against them in the playoffs too, dude. It's just
he's
unlucky.
solid, they just don't win the game, yeah. I do think that Steve Spagnuolo is not gonna let Bryce Young make this like a game. I'm taking the Chiefs minus 10.5. I think Spags is gonna treat Bryce Young like a rookie quarterback and like throw the wolves at him, do what he's gotta do, make his life hell, really pick on, you know, some of the Panthers' weaknesses. The Panthers, I guess their most intriguing thing they have going for them is their rookie running back Jonathan Brooks is gonna be playing in his first NFL game.
Yeah, but I
For
don't think
the
he's going to be getting a ton of reps because they just paid Chuba Hubbard.
No, but still, it's not like he's the second running back,
Oh,
Sanders is hurt, like, he's
I
gonna
think what's going to happen. I think if you're the Chiefs, and this is where I bring up the 2023 Eagles, is like whenever they would make a mistake, it would be like the sky is falling. And where I think the Panthers over the last few weeks, when they reinstalled Bryce Young, is that they are content with running the ball no matter like the possession difference or like the
Mhm.
possessions they're down or up. So, for example, like let's say they're down a possession. Let's say it's 7-0 Chiefs, and they start pounding the ball, trying to win at the line of scrimmage. They're not like they don't panic when they're down like 7-0%. I'm just like, wow, that's the Panthers, you know. I think my point is like this is a little bit of a test to see how resilient they are. Because
Mhm.
if you want to beat the 2023 Eagles allegations, like paced
You gotta
this
beat up on this
you
team, yeah.
paced them. Like
Yeah.
that's
So
yeah.
where are you landing? You taking the
I'm
Chiefs
taking
to
the
do that?
Chiefs.
Okay.
I could see it being like close in the first half and then they just pull away. But
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if I see Travis Kelsey pouting, um, Mahomes getting pissed.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like we'll see. We'll take I'm taking the Chiefs again, even though I feel like I really want to take the Panthers. I just don't have the balls to take the Panthers right now.
Next game we have an NFC North battle. I wonder what is the weather in this wonderful city? The Minnesota Vikings
Probably. Let's see. You keep yeah. Hype us
against the
up, Michael.
Chicago Bears. Um, in Chicago, obviously we had snow in Cleveland, um, and
Believe it or not, Michael, I got the weather report for this game.
it's gonna be like warmish. It's not even gonna be like frigid. Oh, that's lame.
Wind at 9 miles per hour.
Yeah, but it's gonna be like 50 degrees. Like even it's not even 9-mile-an-hour winds are just they're not that heavy, you know. It's not like it's swirling. Yeah, we're kind of getting screwed in Chicago. We could have had another ugly one. But the Vikings are 3.5 point favorites. They're not looking too hot. You look at how the Vikings have been playing as of late. They are beating teams that they should be beating, but they're doing it in uninspiring uninspiring ways. They beat Joe Flacco by a touchdown. They beat like since they lost since like what started the season to start not looking as good was that really brutal loss to the Lions, you know, where it looked like they had them and the Lions really just somehow found a way to win. Then they kind of got beat up on Thursday night. Like I think people saw that one coming a little bit. You barely squeak by Joe Flacco and the Colts at home. You you win a Jags game that was just absolutely ugly against Mac Jones.
Bowling
Sam
shoe ugly.
yeah, like Sam Darnold threw what? 4 interceptions, 3 interceptions, and like 3 of them were
Turned
all
over a bunch of times in the red zone.
deep in the red zone, like 2 interceptions in the end zone. And then he followed up with like a pretty uninspiring 10-point win against the Titans that was like, "Eh, you're not feeling good about the Vikings right now." And I don't like, their schedule just simply does not get easier. They have to play the Bears twice, they have to play the Cardinals, they have to play Atlanta, Seattle, and then Green Bay and Detroit to end their season. Like, their schedule is not pretty. They're definitely a candidate to potentially slip out of the playoffs if Darnold continues to kinda struggle the way he has been.
Well,
And you look at the
I have Sam Darnold's game log pulled up.
I mean,
Um,
it hasn't been pretty, man. Like, you're watching
uh,
like,
I
you just
mean,
watch him play. Like, you watch
well,
him
I know. I
early
agree
in the
with
season,
you.
he
Well,
looks
no, I
really
have the
good,
same opinion you
comfortable.
do, but they allowed 20 points combined their last two games, granted against two of the most anemic
That's what I'm
NFL.
saying, and they almost
I
lost.
think I think you sent me a tweet this week. Inside the 5 yard line, Aaron Jones, 8 carries, -7 yards, and one touchdown.
It's not good.
That's not good. I think the problem with the Vikings offense, Michael, is that I think Aaron Jones is like slowing down and they don't really have a like viable number two back to spell him.
This is
Where
also a Vikings issue, though, because you remember this was a problem last year. What was the Alexander Madison stat? That it was like he had 12 carries inside the 5, and, like, a handful of them were at the 1, and he had no touchdowns? Like that's a Vikings
This is
problem
a
as
Kevin
much as
O'Connell problem
yeah, it's
because
like I don't know if their offensive line is just not good enough in the red zone to get a push at the goal line or like it's way too predictable. I don't know, but it's a Vikings problem that we're on year 2 and they can't run the ball inside the 5 to score a touchdown to save their lives. Like that is terrible. And obviously Jefferson's gone like a month without scoring a touchdown. So, you can't get
yeah,
your
yeah, that's yeah, and I think I had some choice words
yes, yes.
about it where like
Yeah.
I think Kevin O'Connell's a really good head coach. But
I
man,
do too.
dude, how hard is it to like scheme up a play to get him wide open? We watched like his mentor Sean McVay like scheming Puka wide open in the end
Yeah.
zone. Like you
Mhm.
can't like you can't do that with with Jay Jettas. And like
Yeah.
no offense to Puka Nakua, but man, there's like levels to this. Like Justin Jefferson, like Puka Nakua. Like come on,
No, and
man.
it's just like now you get TJ Hawkinson back to like there's plenty of weaponry to get the ball to your guys to score, and they're just struggling to score. I'm taking the Bears plus 3.5.
Whoa,
They're
whoa.
coming off another just back-breaking, shattering loss, and you'd think their spirit is probably broken, but the reason I'm gonna say it's not, and I'm giving them this pick, and they might win the game too, is that they there's we are now at, um since the like, we're at 2 games in the last month where Caleb Williams has left the field with the lead after, battling through the slop that is the Bears coaching. Like that Commanders game where they fumble on the goal line because they draw up a handoff to an offensive lineman and the ball goes flying out and then it's a fumble.
Yeah, he tries to
And
he does like what you're supposed to do when you hand off is and you saw it in the if you watched the Eagles when they played the Falcons in 2017 in the
yeah,
playoffs,
you're supposed to hit the
like
running backs like it how they like it, but for the most part, you're supposed to really make the running back feel the ball. Like, don't give it to him like a loaf of bread, like, kinda almost slam it in there, like, make them feel it. So he slammed it into the offensive lineman,
we slammed
and
it
it
in the offensive lineman's gut,
ricocheted
like it's
yeah,
gut, and then it
yeah,
ricocheted like
ricocheted. And, obviously the Hail Mary but even then, the Bears still came back and took the lead, and then the Hail Mary happened. Then they have 2 weeks where they look anemic, they look dead in the water, they look like they're just rolling over and just they can't wait for the season to end. And then they put together a real gutsy performance against the Packers. Their defense was really, really good, and their offense drove them down to position to win the game via field goal, and once again, coaching ineptitude, settling for what was it, a 41-yarder and not running another play when they had almost like 15 seconds and they just ran it all the way down and like, "Oh, we'll just kick it now." They had so much time to get up on the ball and maybe run another play to get it under definitely under 40 yards, potentially even further because the way that drive was going, Keenan Allen was just killing and getting open on those out routes, and it was easy pitch and catch. They coulda got down easily closer, and they didn't, and it gets blocked.
do you think
Total
do you think
disaster.
that there's gonna come a point when like I feel like because it happened to the Broncos
Mhm.
2 weeks ago, where you get to the position to kick a field goal and basically you like mentally collapse
It
as an offense,
it's
where
weird. It's
where
weird teams
we're like
settling.
I kind of want to be like I don't know, like part of me like if I'm a coach, like I might just like if you trust like you have your rookie, they're both rookie quarterbacks, right? Caleb Williams and Bo Nix.
Yeah.
At what point are you just like you just tell them like, listen, like Caleb, like I want to run a bootleg. We're gonna fake the run. They're gonna all sell out for the run because they think we're gonna try to like kick the field goal. Just run a bootleg. We're gonna have someone in the back of the end zone open. Just worst case, just throw it away. Don't throw an
Well,
interception. Throw it
I
away.
think see, I think that that's part of what hurts you though, because that's like settling for we're going for the touchdown or we're just kicking from where we're at. Like these teams need to get you gotta get closer. Like the Bears, you had to get closer because well, I mean, what came out? That Packers field goal block unit team knew Cairo Santos kicked low kicks anyways. So the fact that they were further back, knew he would kick it lower, than whatever. They knew that they had a shot. Um, like they said when they decided to kick from where they were kicking from, we felt we had a really good shot to block it. And it's like, I don't know. Like there was just a lot of time left that you could have gotten closer and you could get it closer to where Santos can just really get some arc on it. But I don't know, the Bears been playing some gutsy football, and I think that they're gonna break through eventually, and I think this is honestly it's a good matchup for a team that might be disheartened. Another home divisional game, so it's enough to get you up and emotional, and
Yeah,
it's
I don't
obviously
see
it's
it
not the
like. Well, I don't
Lions,
trust the
so
Bears. The Bears
yeah,
are on like a death march right now, and I think they're hitting a point where, like, why would you risk your body for like? Why would you risk your body for like Matt Eberflus?
yeah.
He's
No,
a
I hear
dolt.
you. Yeah, alright. Next game we have is the Cowboys and the Commanders. So the Commanders are 10.5 point favorites. Obviously coming off the Thursday loss.
Bro,
The
when's the
defense
last time the Commanders were favored 10.5 points over the Dallas Cowboys?
Dallas, I
Probably
I
like when they went like 1-15 with like Troy Aikman in like 1990 or something.
yeah, this is bad. The Cowboys
No, it's great. I love it.
looked terrible against Houston on Monday night. The Texans were kinda playing with their food a little bit, and then it just like, they're just not good, man. Their stars look out of it. It's just mm, it's a mess in Dallas for sure. I'm taking the Commanders minus 10.5. Not much to say here. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
trusting I'm trusting the fact that, we talked about it last week, the whole wait and see with the Commanders. Like, is this really just the normal Kingsbury collapse, or are they a good team that's not as good as the teams that they're
Bro,
losing
they
to?
could win this game 20-3.
They could.
And like their
And
EPA will be bad, but they're just gonna
I mean,
whip
I
up
guess,
a
but, like, this is the recipe. These are the type of teams they've been beating comfortably all season, so we'll see if it continues, and I'm gonna trust it. I'm taking Washington.
I'm taking Washington as well. I low key hope, like, besides my Cowboy hate, is that if like Cooper Rush and Trey Lance like combined for like 5 turnovers, that the Cowboys sign Daniel Jones and he plays against the Giants on
On
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. That would
I
be
would
entertaining.
that would be appointment television in my opinion. All right.
Speaking of the Giants, we have them as our next game at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and no, it will not be Drew Lock taking on the Bucks as a 6-point underdog. It will be Tommy DeVito, so really makes you think that I guess the only reason the Giants signed Drew Lock to a $5 million contract instead of maybe throwing some of that extra change at Saquon Barkley was because of the off chance that the Giants were, like, good and Daniel Jones got hurt, that you would turn to Drew Lock for the stretch run of the season or something. So, there was one specific scenario that you would make Drew Lock your starting quarterback that probably had, like, a 5% chance of ever happening, and this is where you're at. You're benching you actually cut your starting quarterback, and you're not gonna play the $5 million
Yeah,
backup.
you know why he got cut?
Yes, well, he requested, but he got benched because of the injury policy, the insurance policy that Daniel Jones what was it specifically? If Daniel Jones was playing and Daniel Jones got hurt, he would get what, like another year tacked onto his contract or something like that? Like it was something kind of
Yeah, I apologize if I'm
kind of
cutting out. My internet indicators coming up.
you're fine. You sound fine.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I think it was no. There, it's like what happened with Russ last year with some like
Yeah.
guarantees, where it was a financial decision that may have upset some of the other players like Dexter Lawrence was
It was pretty much all of them were like pissed.
were mad because it's like, and listen, this could be. It was not. I don't think Dable made the decision. I think it was Joe Sheen, and I think John Mara. John Mara, to my opinion, coming off as a bit of a cheapskate because the whole Saquon Barkley debacle and the not playing Drew Lock because he gets incentives if he hits certain
Yeah, which that's criminal.
right. And I think everybody kind of clearly knows that Tommy DeVito is just not a
Tommy,
viable NFL number two,
no,
let alone a starting quarterback.
Tommy DeVito does not have incentives, I'm sure, in his contract. Not the ones of that are of Drew Locks or Daniel Jones's insurance policy. So some pretty terrible, pretty like just slimy stuff from the Giants to save a few bucks. Um, so I'm taking Tampa -6.
I love Tampa in this game, by the way,
Yeah, like
Michael.
I
And I
think
have a
that
take. I have a take I want to share as well about Tampa as well.
yeah, they get
And
Mike Evans back, which is nice, and I think they're gonna try to really make it their priority to get him 1,000 yards, which obviously they have some work to do. So I think they're gonna
well,
try,
well,
force
I
him the
don't think it's so
ball.
much the priority. It's like the need to feed your best players the
They're
ball.
gonna like they're gonna do him like a favor. Like if he needs a buck 20 on week 18 to get to 1,000, they're gonna make sure he gets a buck
I
20. You know what I'm
have.
saying?
I think the Tampa Bay
So
Buccaneers have a very good opportunity to win the NFC South
yeah,
because after
I
watching
was just gonna say
Atlanta
that.
get completely obliterated in Denver, like just showed how. And Kirk was banged up. They were a little banged up. I think when the Falcons hired Raheem Morris and then Zach Robinson, that was the most overhyped coaching hire for no reason, no logical reason.
Well, they were McVay guys, that's why. And they
Okay,
were hoped to
and
kind of bring that sort of vibe.
yeah, like
I
yeah,
think
they really bring.
like if I'm being honest, and I can't like I'm not saying you're wrong necessarily, but what I am gonna say is that like first of all, good time for the bye week for the Falcons, but is this just not like the same thing that every Kirk Cousins led team has been? Basically his entire career from Washington to Minnesota to now Atlanta. Is this not what happens pretty much every year? It is an up and down season with some pretty nice highs, some pretty low lows, and it averages out to a team on the cusp of the playoffs where sometimes they get in, sometimes they miss, and they more likely than not lose in their first playoff game. Maybe they win one, but more often than not, they're just getting bounced in the first round, and they do this song and dance all year to get them to right around usually a game or so over 500 and, you know, into the playoffs to then get bounced. Like it just this is very par for the course for what Kirk Cousins has been as a starting quarterback his whole career. And it's part of the reason that people never will put him higher than like 12 when ranking a quarterback because there will be moments where it'll be like, man, Kirk Cousins is actually pretty damn good. Like he's probably like, eighth best quarterback or something like that. And then you just keep watching the rest of the season and it'll eventually start rolling its way back. And this game against Denver, where it seems as though the entire team had the bye week on their mind when they got on the plane to Colorado. And this is what you get. Like I don't know. Like it feels like this is normal. I'm not saying all that can't be true and Tampa can't win the division because, I think that that's all part of it. You look at Tampa's schedule the rest of the year, talk about easy schedules. I think it's the easiest schedule in the league, based on like win percentage and stuff. They play the
Oh,
Giants
and
tomorrow,
I want
Carolina.
I want this Falcons team to like basically sleepwalk into the playoffs. By the way,
Yeah, yeah. It's you get the Giants, then you get Carolina, both of which on the road. Home against the Raiders, at the Chargers, which is a tough game, that's a good
loss.
team, but then it's at Cowboys, home Panthers, home Saints. That is like it's not good because the division's not good. So, Tampa's what, 4-6, 4-7 right now? Uh, 5-7? I forget.
They're
4 and
yeah,
6.
4 and
Tampa's 4
6.
and 6 right now. I'm not saying they're gonna go, in their last 7 games, 6-1 or something and go, 10-7, but they could 9-8 is certainly very plausible, and then, flipping to go to 6, it's
Yes,
there
another
for
9
sure.
and 8 NFC South division winner.
Exactly. So,
Yes.
I am taking Tampa, though, to win. I think Mike Evans is gonna be a big point, and I think the Giants are just on cruise control to being
Yeah,
the
and
worst, as bad
yeah,
as they
and
possibly be.
honestly, I'm a little sick of seeing these Giants fans on Twitter saying that, how Tyrone Tracy's better than Saquon Barkley because they're complete delusional, like brain dead fools. I wouldn't be surprised if we see, like, knowing their luck, that like Tyrone Tracy like fumbles 3 times or blows his knee out, and then they're just gonna be just to be, because they truly, like, the Giants fans, in my opinion, they truly need to be punished by God for how overly positive and delusional they are.
Mhm.
How many, like, Daniel Jones is better than Jalen Hurts takes have we seen?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if we were to talk about like white privilege, it's Daniel Jones, like Benjamin Solak, who I think is probably the biggest blowhard, like elitist on of like these NFL minds, is saying that Daniel Jones would be like the next Baker Mayfield, like, reclamation project. Michael, we watched in a game Daniel Jones have like 15 seconds to throw, and he's staring Malik Neighbors down, and he gets sacked by the Eagles. What
Yeah.
is there to fix?
Yeah, no, no, he's done. He's done, and I
He's
think
cooked.
Giants fans know it at this point that he's done. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Next game we
sorry.
have, Patriots Dolphins. So the Dolphins are another team that could have a late resurgence into a potential playoff position, and it'll be interesting to see. As the season winds down, as the weather gets a little colder, usually the Dolphins struggle, and
Yeah,
they are home against the Patriots, that should be fine. At Green Bay, that's not gonna be at Green Bay on Thanksgiving, that is not gonna be nice weather, I'm sure.
no,
Home against the Jets, at the Texans, you're in a dome. Home against the Niners, at the Browns, God knows what that weather could be, and then at the Jets, another ugly. So it's a good mixed bag of some good and bad weather for them. However, the Dolphins are like top 5 in DVOA on both offense and defense since Tua has returned, so they're playing definitely some better football as a team since he got back, not just obviously from the quarterback play perspective.
well, yeah,
Uh,
it's because Achan now, like, teams can't just put 8, 9 guys in the box against Achan.
no, they can throw now, they can do some other things. The Patriots, on the other hand, have been playing some pretty good football recently. Drake May is really coming into his own, looking nice. They're keeping all their games, they kinda play close, and I think that's gonna stay true again. I still think the Dolphins win, but 7.5 is pretty steep. I think I'm gonna take New England, plus 7.5. I might be overthinking a little bit, but I don't know. I think this is something Miami, they win by, like, 6 or something, like 26-20.
Yeah, we haven't really seen like a Mike McDaniel, like, demolition derby, like, at
Mhm.
all this season. And
No, in the prime months, you get that. Tua hasn't been playing, so
um I'm taking the Dolphins. Listen, I like Drake May a lot, but I also feel that there's gonna be some ups and downs. I think last week was definitely an up.
Mhm.
This kind of could feel like it's gonna be a down. I'm taking the Dolphins.
He's doing yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just think that I don't know. I think the Dolphins are just. I don't know. I think you might see it like Ramondre Stevenson play really well, and then like Drake May is just like I don't know. We'll see. Like this is uh,
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
fun game to watch. You
yeah.
know.
I think that you call these New England losses a lot of process losses, and it's pretty true. Like, and I think it goes down to like Drake May. Like he'll play well basically the entire game, and it's like the last drive, and it's like, all right, time for my effort down the field throw. That's like 85% getting intercepted, and it's how the last two losses have ended. It's how the Titans game loss ended for the Patriots, and it's how last week ended against the Rams, where he gets the ball down a score and he just kind of just throws a nuke that gets intercepted. Next game we have is the Titans and the Texans, a nice AFC South bout. Not really much to talk about with this one, in my opinion. I'm going to take Houston. Getting Nico Collins back, even if he didn't have a monster game because of a touchdown getting called back on like the first play from scrimmage, I do think that a combination of Dallas just being horrible, but I do think it opens some things up a little bit more. I think, you know, the running game had a really, really nice look because of it, as well as, some other things just kind of getting a little bit better for them. So I'm going to take Houston -8 at home. Not really much to think about there.
Yeah. Um, Titans are 1-9 against the spread,
That's
Michael.
what I'm saying. They're not even covering, man. They're just getting pieced.
I'm taking the Texans as well against my better judgment because I think the Texans are very fraudulent.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, come on, man. Like the Titans are just gonna lose out the rest of the year, and I don't know. It's funny they
Yeah.
fired Vrabel unfairly, and they're just way worse. They're horribly run. Uh,
Yeah.
CJ Stroud needs to have a good game. If he goes and has like another like zero TD, like two interception game, and they win like 17-14 in a nail biter, there needs to be some conversations about him,
Hmm. Hmm.
in my
Yeah.
opinion. But whatever.
Next
It's
game,
yeah.
we have the Broncos and the Raiders. The Raiders are 6-point underdogs at home. I'd like to say there's probably going to be a good amount of Bronco fans there, right? You'd
Yes.
like Denver should be able to cover the 6 coming off an absolute shellacking against Atlanta. But, Vegas almost covered against the Dolphins last week. They were a big touchdown away at the end of the game, um, to Jonnu Smith on, like, a broken coverage from
Yeah, I was there when I
from
watched you.
covering. Yeah, we
You were
were
like,
it cashed
you
a
were
bet for me. That
yes.
cashed a bet. So, um, I wonder if am I overthinking saying the Raiders might be able to keep a game close? Divisional game? Is Bo Nix due to, like, not be good? I don't know, like, they keep playing bad defenses, so I guess until they play a good one, I'll say Bo Nix is gonna keep looking pretty solid, so I'm taking Denver -6.
I'm going to take Denver -6 as well. I'm actually pulling up CJ Stroud's game log. Oh, CJ Stroud, Jesus. Bo Nix's game log. And I mean, last week, 4 tutties against a really good secondary in the Falcons,
Mhm.
3 touchdowns against the Panthers, 2 touchdowns, I mean, against the Chargers, against the Raiders. Earlier in the year, they won 34-18 at home.
Mm.
He played really well there. I mean, this is what Bo Nix is. He's going to play really well against bad defenses, and he's just going to poop the bed against like semi-competent defenses. So, yeah, man,
Another bad defense, chalk it up.
Bronco it up. Broncos
Yeah.
country. Let's ride. Why not?
Oh, man.
Why not?
Next game we have, this is probably,
The game of the week.
perhaps it's like it feels like a weak slate if we're like, and again, I don't think it's gonna be a bad game. So, the NFC South is or sorry, the NFC West is very tight. with a bunch of teams that are 6-4, 5-5, 5-6. Everyone's right there on a slop of mediocrity, but teams are starting to play better football. That one team being the Arizona Cardinals. Their offense is really, really clicking. Their defense, which is still not good, is kind of becoming serviceable-ish. Um, Getting some wins at the right time. They're on the road against the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a 1-point favorite at home. We have a split 50-50 on the spread and a 54-46 slight favor towards the Seahawks at home. This is a good game. DK Metcalf, uh, after Seahawks had a bye week 2 weeks ago. They came off the bye last week, and they had a very, very gutsy road win against the San Francisco 49ers, which we'll talk about them next. Geno
Oh yeah.
Smith Geno Smith orchestrating what was one of the most entertaining game-winning drives of the season. The way he'd take the snap, take 2 steps back in his drop, and there was a free runner, and Nick Bosa wasn't even healthy on that last, like, he wasn't even out there, but it was just there was always someone running free. He had no time, and he was making throws, he was scrambling, he was running. It was really entertaining, and it was a great gutsy drive, and, you know, I just like Geno, man, and that was cool. The Cardinals, they're playing good, man, and maybe like this is a huge, huge, huge game for the sake of the NFC West. Big games this week for honestly all. Obviously, there's an interdivisional one. Rams playing the Eagles, Packers playing the Niners. It feels as though whatever team wins is going to win the NFC West. Like if Seattle wins, because I'll just say it now, I don't think the Rams are winning. I don't think the Packers are sorry, I don't think the 49ers are winning. So I feel like whatever team wins out of these 2 games or out of this game, out of these 2 teams, I think has the inside track again for the NFC West. And I'm gonna take Seattle -1 at home here. I think being at home is gonna be nice. I think it's gonna come down to it. Like, I think we might even get a push. Seattle winning like 24-23, something like that. Like, I think it's gonna be a really, really entertaining game.
I'm gonna take Seattle as well. The Cardinals are on a 4-game win streak, Michael, and I do feel as if they're still a young team, and like there's gonna come a point where I can't see them winning the division.
Seattle or Arizona, you mean?
Correct. I
Mhm,
still feel that the Rams are just a way better coached team, and now that they're fully healthy, that they could make a run.
mhm.
Um, Regardless if because here's the thing, they could still lose to the Eagles, and they could still have a strong chance at winning the division.
Yeah, it'll be 5 and 6. I don't yeah.
You know,
That division's
so
tight, man.
yes, and it's going to be because everyone's within like a game of it. So
Mhm,
pretty much, if you go 9-8, I think you win the division in the NFC
mhm,
West, right?
mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm taking Seattle. You know, Drew Petzig, the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals, has been a lot of people are looking at him like a potential head coach because of their offense and how like Kyler is playing his like best like quarterbacking since
Mhm.
coming into the league and how good they run the ball. I'm gonna be honest, man. I feel like when you look at the warts of the Arizona Cardinals offense, it's like they don't get Marvin involved enough. And like Trey McBride does not have a receiving touchdown, this year.
Mhm. Now listen, they're winning games. They won 4 in a row. They're still producing numbers even without really fixating on their guys, I guess. I I do think the NFL's in a place where it's like, everyone's trying to find the next guy, obviously, but it's like, God, you'd think that someone could have more than just one good year of something before you gotta run to hire him, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one was running to hire Shane Steichen after 2021, where you could have easily credited, "Oh, he took over and the Eagles' offense kinda took off and they still didn't have AJ." Like, you could have made an argument there, but you just didn't, and now you're seeing, like you saw it with, thank God no one hired, Bobby Slowick in from Houston after last year because obviously we're seeing that
Well, I
he's been
think the
struggling, but
media hypes him up, where I think the teams know during the hiring cycle who's a legit good coach and who's like a wait and see style
I
approach.
g I guess. I
You
guess you're
know,
not seeing it go too bad, but yeah, it is interesting. Alright. Next game, we have the Packers and the Niners. So the Niners are quite banged up. No Nick Bosa, no Brock Purdy. They do get Kittle back, which is nice, but, I mean, listen, you're taking away Brock.
yeah. Do you know
Uh,
who's starting for the Niners? I know who is.
I actually do not.
So we're gonna see a like 2018 like Panthers reunion of Brandon Allen.
Oh,
Remember
yeah, yeah, Brandon
and
Allen, yes.
Christian
Christian
McCaffrey.
McCaffrey,
Christian
yeah.
McCaffrey can't
If
escape this
you
guy.
remember, do you remember in 20 what was his last year out there? 2020, I don't know. 2019, maybe 2020 or 2020, some around there, where Carolina went into Green Bay and lost a one possession game in the snow. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
I remember that was like the last,
By the way,
Rodgers.
Oz the Mentalist on Pat McAfee's show said that he asked one of the Ty Schmidt, who was imitating Mel Kiper on this draft day spectacular, like
Mhm.
just pick the final score of a game. Like, what game are you excited for in the? This was all the way back around the draft, and he said, "Oh, the Niners play the Packers in Green Bay," and he's like, "Pick the final score." And like they do like the magic tricks or whatever.
Mhm.
He said that he owes the mentalist picked the final score of this game being 35-27 Green Bay.
Listen,
But
that'd be
then
a lot of points.
he said it would be 1 point off from what like Ty
Interesting.
Schmidt picked. So I do find that interesting. So I'm taking Green Bay.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm taking Green Bay. Their defense has not been very inspiring as of late. Their pass rush is almost 0, um, which I guess that bodes fairly well for, Brandon Allen being your quarterback, but I think it would behoove Green Bay to send some blitzes out of his way and try to really get him off his game. That is should be a weather game as well.
It feels like a McCaffrey game.
It's it was there was snow in Lambeau, like, yesterday. It looks like it's just gonna be cold. Ugh, missing out, man. Close, but, yeah, I'm taking Green Bay too. I just think without the Niners,
Yeah,
guys,
I'm
it's
taking
gonna be
Green Bay
tough.
as well.
Let's see, the Eagle game. Monday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens are in LA against the Chargers. Ravens are 2.5-point favorites on the road. Chargers having a very, very nice, first half on Sunday night against the Bengals. It was a great first half. Justin Herbert looked untouchable. They were just taking it to the Bengals. And then the Bengals made a switch where they decided to start running significantly more man coverage and just daring the garbage Chargers receivers to beat their D backs. And that wasn't happening. Their receivers could not get open. Everything was just slightly off. All their big plays they were trying to hit, maybe it was slightly underthrown. Defender maybe got his finger in there and it was dropped, whatever. So feels like the MO you're playing the Chargers, run a lot of man. Let their receivers that are just not very good, force them to get open off press coverage and stuff. Do not let them find the zone, the soft zones, and Herbert will carve you up. So feels like that's the strategy. We'll see though. Ravens have the worst secondary in football, so that bodes well for what's not a great receiving core. Lad McConkey, I think, is very good. but I think everyone else is not great.
Yeah, Lad McConkey kind of reminds me of Steve Smith Sr. a little bit, where they're both these undersized, deceptively fast receivers that just know how to work underneath defenses and get a lot of yards after the catch.
Hmm.
Um,
They're
but
they're good, man. They're he's
But I
I like
also
that.
like I do agree with you. Like I think Quentin Johnson is not like the worst receiver in NFL history, but he's at best like average, right?
Yeah, and like Joshua
And the
Palmer
Chargers
is like,
don't have a tight end that's
I mean,
viable.
Will Dissly had a nice little week
Yeah, but
last
like
week.
it's sort of like, dude, someone's got to catch Herbert's passes,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know?
And Baltimore having that just really, really tough loss against the Steelers. It's tough. I'm gonna take Lamar. I think it's like his Monday night stats are like kind of ridiculous if I remember correctly. Um, Lamar Jackson, yeah, in 8 games on Mondays has a passer rating of 124 with 1,772 yards and 20 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in 8 games. That's pretty remarkable,
Can I
I'd say.
so I think this is going to be a great game overall. Um I take back what I said earlier. This I think the game tomorrow is going to be Cardinals Seahawks for best Sunday game, obviously, but this is like the game of the week in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm excited for this one.
I'm going to take the Chargers because if you look at the coaching jobs between the Harbaugh brothers, so we have the Harbaugh
Yeah,
brothers,
it's a Harbaugh thing.
the Harbaugh Bowl. Like,
Mhm,
dude, Jim Harbaugh has done a way better coaching job this year for the Chargers than I think John Harbaugh's done with the Ravens, because a lot of the Ravens like losses are from his like mismanagement of games.
yeah, the Ravens have a lot of late game collapses, and a lot of that falls on the head coach. Poor time management, just kinda letting your foot off the gas, a lot of things. Special teams screwing you.
Like Lamar's teams just like this like defense sort of like lets Lamar Jackson down in the end of games where he has to like salvage the game. So I
Mhm,
think whichever team has the ball last, I think is the team that's going to win the game.
mhm,
Like I could see
and
Lamar walking off the field up 4 with like 3 minutes left, and then Herbert like dissects the
a
Ravens
game-winning
defense,
drive.
and then they
Yeah,
lose.
yeah. I'm gonna take Baltimore. I'm taking the other side. I'm just the Ravens have been able to, they've been able to kind of bounce back. Uh, you look at their losses that they've had, like, they bounced back of a loss to the Browns by a shellacking against the Broncos, 41-10. Um, Obviously, they started the year 0-2, and that was pretty ugly, but they went on a run. I I I think this is another bounce back spot because you look at the Ravens schedule, it is brutal. It is very, very brutal. It's another team that'll be kicking themselves for for the Browns loss. They have obviously the Chargers Monday, following week the Eagles, then they have their bye week, very late bye, and then they play the Giants out of the bye as a nice like warm up. But then it's Steelers, Texans, Browns to end the year, and like that's just not it's not great. Um, so I think this is one they gotta have, and I think they recognize the opportunity to get back after the Steelers lost to the Browns. Which takes us to the Eagles game. Sunday Night Football, our last game here. The Eagles are 3-point favorites on the road. It'll be interesting to see because they usually take over LA. However, this being a night game, I wonder if you'll see a little bit less Eagles fans over there. I know obviously it's still only 5 o'clock out on the West Coast, but
Do you know that
you know,
they're scalping the tickets way higher because of Eagles fans?
I didn't know that. Interesting.
So I looked on StubHub to see what the ticket prices are. Now they play their next home games against the Bills, which is
It's another traveling fan base, pretty well.
right. Well, the Eagles tickets are 50% more than the Bills tickets.
Do you think it's because it's just this week, like the games in a day versus a week?
No, I think it's because the people know Eagles fans, even though the tickets like like upcharged significantly, it's actually if you have like a bunch of frequent flyer miles like basically like banked away, it's actually cheaper to fly out to LA to see the Eagles play the Rams than potentially at
Home
home
game?
the Eagles home game,
Isn't that a shame?
right?
Yeah. So the Eagles are
So
3-point favorites. We're thinking maybe there's going to be another good Eagle takeover with the fans. Um,
no Devontae.
No Devonte Smith. That's the biggest thing entering this game.
And the Eagles are 0-1 this year when Devontae Smith is not playing.
This will be the first time, hopefully, knock on wood, that we get a full game of AJ Brown, no Devonte Smith. It's only happened once the entire season, or sorry, in his entire tenure as an Eagle, and it was the Giants game at the end of the regular season last year, the last week of the year, where AJ Brown actually ended up getting hurt in the first half. So it wasn't even a full game that Brown was able to play with no Devonte Smith. So it's interesting. This isn't I don't know, this isn't like a narrative thing. Like obviously we saw AJ Brown have tremendous success in Tennessee, where his number two receiver was like Corey Davis. Um, but no Devonte Smith. It'll be interesting. We've seen the other way happen quite a few times. We haven't seen it this way. The Rams the Rams had a nice win. They did like their defense was getting not cooked or anything, but the Patriots were able to keep the game pretty close, even though the Rams were able to like move the ball easily, had some big play touchdowns. Like it was their offense had saw a lot of success throwing the ball. And it's been, their defense has been their weak point, I guess you could say, for some time now, but it's still a pretty solid defense. This will be a good test for the Eagles because they're definitely the better team, and I think there's a margin of how much better they are too, and I think it's decently substantial. Yet, it's a tough spot. They're on this winning streak. They have. It was nice to have like a mini bye because you played on Thursday, but looking ahead, you got that Ravens game next week. It's a big test of games that if the Eagles really want to have a shot for the 1 seed and home field, they have to win this game. Um, this will be a massive game for the Lions if the, Eagles end up losing to the Rams because the Lions have already beaten the Rams, so that would be a big common opponent plus for
Well, I
Detroit.
think you're looking at the number one seed too. Let's think about the division because, like, you look at the Commanders' schedule, Michael. Besides the
No, it's
Eagles,
easy. Yeah,
it's a
it's easy.
cakewalk.
Yeah, yeah. So even the division listen, you gotta it's asking a lot, but you gotta kinda just keep winning because the teams around you do not have as, difficulties. The Eagles have, I'll say, what, 4 tough games left with this, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Washington? That's not easy, those 4 games for sure. So, this is the
I
first of the final Big
so
4.
in my opinion, for me, even though there's no Devontae, like we've seen Dallas Goddard when he's like he needs to step up as the number two receiving option, like
Mhm. He's
he does it.
capable.
And
Yeah.
after him fumbling last week and then getting really lucky that it didn't get picked up by the Commanders because it looked like we were about to see a repeat of what happened 2 years ago when they were
Yes.
here. That like he is going to get called upon again to, you know, take advantage of like the back end of the Rams defense, which I mean, let's be real, Michael. The Rams defense isn't exactly a like bunch of world beaters, and
No.
like we haven't really seen AJ Brown have that 2022 game against the Steelers, where he's literally cooking them, like literally just cooking their entire secondary,
He
or last
his
year
yeah.
either Commander game where he just is cooking them. You
Like, his
know,
first 2 games of the year, the 5 catches for a buck 19 to score against Green Bay. Then he didn't play against the Browns game, which that was a mess, but he did have 6 for 116 and a touchdown. Um, but, 2023, he went on that ridiculous run from week 3 through, uh, the Commanders' 2nd Commanders game um, that they won on the road, where he went on just an unreal tear of 9 for 131, 9 for 175, 2 touchdowns, 6 for 127, 7 for 131, 10 for 137 and a score, 8 for 130, 2 touchdowns, and then even the next week, 7 for 66 and a score. So he was really dominant through the end of September into the beginning of November last year. And not to say that he's not still a top ridiculous receiver in the league, but we haven't seen like the huge statistical game where he just kind of fills it up and it's every play that he's just open and killing somebody. So yeah, this will be a good opportunity to open that up. I expect Goddard, like you said, to fill in that role nicely. Jared Verse will be a nice test for the Eagles' offensive line. Rookie of the
mm,
year favorite currently, so it'll be nice to see if
oh,
they can slow that down. And
interesting.
then, yeah, and then obviously another heavy dose of Saquon to help the offense. The biggest key for this game is the defense. I'm really, really intrigued. Obviously, the defense has been on a all-time heater for some time, and it's not like they've only played bad offenses. They played a Commanders team that was lighting up the scoreboard. They played a Bengals team that, since that Eagles game, has been incredible. I know they didn't have T. Higgins, but they still had Jamar Chase, which uh, that's been really, really been something. So one of the biggest, like, such an interesting take, or not a take, but just the thought exercise, think piece that's been going around is on Slay, Darius Slay. So Slay, since he's been an Eagle, if things keep going the way he's going, the way he's playing this season, and he stays healthy, he'll have his 4th Pro Bowl in 5 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, which will be more Pro Bowls than he had when he was in Detroit. So I do think he gets underappreciated a bit by the fans because of his buddy nature with most of the league, because of his podcast, because he has his mental meltdowns every now and again where he starts tweeting his stats or goes at it, whatever. A lot of things like that. But the reality of what he is that he's a 34-year-old cornerback that is playing at such an unprecedented high level for someone at his age to be still kind of reliant to be dominant on one side of the field, and he just has been. I remember last week reading off his stats from the previous 5 games, and it continued again, in the Commander game where, him and Quinyon Mitchell held Terry McLaurin to 0 catches. Like, it was dominant. And, the players talk about how good of a leader he is and how he really has done a nice job taking Quinyon Mitchell under his wing. And, I think when people look back on Slay, they'll be like, damn, maybe I shouldn't have been such like a dick, because Darius Slay can go a month without letting up more than 3 catches in a game, and you won't hear a peep. But as soon as, say, on Sunday night, Puka beats him on like a 3rd and goal from the 8 for a touchdown, and it'll be like, oh, Slay's so washed, he's so cooked, and it'll be visceral if he gives up a score. You saw it. He got beat for the touchdown against Atlanta, and it was like Slay's the worst, all this sort of stuff. And you haven't heard really much of anything about negative Darius Slay, but neither nor positive either, because he doesn't really get the respect. So for someone that maybe isn't the best example of like a lead by example captain or that sort of thing, where he does have a little more take things personally sort of thing, especially from fans, and talk that way, he's definitely a really, really, really good mentor, especially for this secondary that has 2 young guys that are playing at, like, elite level, that I think it would be foolish to say that Darius Slay hasn't been a very big, catalyst into helping those 2 young guys be as good as they've been and really help hold down the back end. And I think that the secondary is gonna be put on a huge test. This will be the first time this year that they face 2 elite receivers at the same time. They played the Bengals, but again, no T. Higgins. They've handled all the receivers they've thrown their way, like all the elite ones, but this will be, they struggled against Evans and Godwin. But again, that game feels like such a throwaway because for whatever reason they thought Baker Mayfield didn't throw the ball quick. I don't know. But this will be a
Yeah, I would
legit
say their
test.
only major gigantic like and now like we have a full like
Couple months of
yes with
stuff.
with Fangio running the defense. I do think that um the only game where like that the Buccaneer game where it was like 110 degrees, a bunch of guys left the game due to heat sickness. Everyone was hurt at going into that game. You know, it was so much bad vibes entering that game. Like I think every year, every good team just has a game they go into where, there's a circumstance that for they shouldn't lose the game, right? You
Mhm,
think, but there's injuries and there's other circumstances. I feel like that, knock on wood, that was like their game, right? I do
mhm,
think when you bring up with Slay, though, I do think that Darius Slay is a very good cornerback, and he's playing at a high level at an older age as well, which is like you said is very uncommon in the NFL. I do find it very interesting though, Michael. Just looking at his stats, the Eagles' corners this year, I don't think have an interception.
no, I mean, CJ's got a couple, Reed's got a few, and, like, I think what is it, Bond and
And
Nakobe Dean have
N'Kobe
one?
Dean. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Eagles turnovers. The Eagles have been forcing a lot more turnovers in
John,
this stretch, but a
they
lot of
don't
it's
throw to the
fumbles.
corners, man. They're not throwing them.
But here's the thing, though. This is going to be. I think this is a great test
It's a
for
huge test. This
the
is a
Eagles
massive test.
defense because listen, Stafford's older. Matthew
I think s
Stafford in his career, it like owns the Eagles. Last year was his first ever loss to the Eagles.
is that really true? They didn't beat the Lions once? The Snow Bowl. He's 4-2.
Oh,
The Snow Bowl was his only other loss, and he was like, statistically, he was 10 of 25 for 151 yards. It was
okay. So when there isn't like abhorrent weather, he like cooks the Eagles. And last year he was hurt when he played the Eagles. By the way, he had the thumb injury
yes, yes, I do. But other than that, he's
because he
been
played like an absolute psycho. Like
mhm.
he's like trying to like dive hit with the broken thumb, and he just slams it into the ground. He's just like he gets up screaming in
Yeah,
pain.
4-2 against his career versus the Eagles, and the wins have been pretty good. His worst win was the 2019 win, we all remember that one,
Oh
that
yeah,
loss.
J. Jaw let a ball go right through his hands that would have won the game.
Yes, but, like, on Thanksgiving, against Bradley Fletcher, 337 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. He's only thrown 1 interception in his career against the Eagles, and it was way back in 2012, his first start against the Eagles.
So what you're basically saying is that
This is a huge test. This is a massive like you said, massive test. It's a good quarterback, 2 great receivers, one of which is gonna be, like, mostly in the slot. So, like, Cooper DeJean's gonna be really tested, and then both the outside guys are gonna be tested. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to
actually
see how the Rams
I'm
approach
going
it.
to go the other way here when we wrap this up.
I'm taking the Eagles, I will say.
I'm
Taking the
taking the
Eagles.
Eagles as well. This is a
Mhm.
massive test, I think, for the Eagles' run defense because Kyron Williams is a top. You think he's a top 3 running back?
Like,
Top
he's
five?
very good. Probably closer to
I
5.
mean, it's Barkley, Henry are top 2, and then who's like number 3?
Like McCaffrey's still really good.
Yeah, but he's played like
Um,
2 games this year. Like we're gonna rank
alright,
him,
alright.
you
I mean,
know.
Kyron Williams, since Puka and Cup have both been healthy, has been rather uninspiring. And I know this very well because I made a fantasy trade for Kyron Williams, and he's been pretty garbage. So
No.
he's been bad since not bad, but like Kyron Williams went like 17 of 20 games scoring a touchdown, having over like 100 yards, ridiculous numbers, and those 2 guys got back, and he's yet to crack 100 rushing yards, and he's yet to find the end zone.
I do find interesting though about tomorrow night's game is going to be that like Fangio likes to bait these quarterbacks into like areas
Yeah.
he, like you saw it when they played the Commanders that like the Cliff Kingsbury was so terrified of falling trap that he just literally had Jaden Daniels check down the entire game.
Mhm.
They're not going to check down the entire game tomorrow night, the Rams, because that's
No,
not
the Eagles are gonna be and I hope they are. I hope they're gonna be in
like
their face again,
So
pressing
here's
up,
the thing: it's like McVay loves cooking up schemes to free guys open, but now you're thinking like he's going to cook up a scheme to free up like Puka, and is he going to run into like Quinion and like Reed Blankenship, and then is he just going to like Stafford's just going to not make the read of
That's that's my point. What like, I'd much rather my defense have a higher risk to give up like a 60-yard touchdown than get nickeled and dimed the entire game and just be force yourself that every single drive becomes bend don't break. I want to be the aggressor, chance to force a turnover and force punts. And
Well, this is
yeah,
it's funny you
there
say
are
that
time and
because
place
now
to
that
play
Bryce
bend don't
Huff
break.
is out and Jalix Hunt might not play,
Mhm,
we're gonna probably see this is gonna be, I think, probably the biggest game of Nolan Smith's career because he's probably gonna start and
mhm.
play a lot of reps, and he's played pretty well, I think.
He has played
Covering
very
the
well.
flat, playing the run,
Yeah,
rushing the
he's been an
passer.
effective pass rusher,
He's a
yeah.
first round pick. Like this is kind of what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. It's nice to see that, you know, we've adjusted our expectations for Jordan Davis that nose tackles just don't play a ton anymore. Like, not like every snap. So, like, he's only gonna play like 35% of the snaps, but if in those 35% he's stuffing runs and, you know, just being an absolute clog machine, that's great. And, Jalen Carter obviously is like Christ himself, and Nolan Smith is really taking a jump. Josh Sweat's finding his stride this season. Even Bryce Huff in his limited snaps was kind of winning one-on-one, like, constantly. So yeah, Alex Hunt has looked pretty good, so it'll be interesting to see if he continues it. And I'm excited, man.
Me
The
too.
Eagles are playing well. I'm excited for the ride. So yeah, that's it, everybody.
Awesome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.